Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So let's do it, okay? Now look, we already talked about this. Now let's just, move forward. So I said that data types have their own types, right? And one of them are built-in data types and or also called primitive data types. They're the same, okay? So built-in data types are types of data, right? And a few examples for them I'm going to give you right now. Examples of them can be, integer, strings, and then there are Boolean values, right? And then you've got real numbers. You've got literally, date and time. Date, time, just write date. Okay. Was there any, yeah, character. If you talk about string, then we must talk about character. I should have placed string and character right next to each other, but you know what, never mind. So whenever you're trying to save any kind of data inside a computer, you need to tell the computer the type of this data so that the computer knows what it's dealing with, right? Because data is types and, the computer needs to know how he's supposed to treat this data that you're trying to store inside of it, right? Let's say, for example, when you're trying to store a number inside a computer, you would say, okay, I'm trying to store an integer. It can be 20. It can be, 6, 7, the meme, you know, it can be 19. It can be anything, right? Strings are just, you mostly write them in quotation marks. This is just text, like any alphabet, literally any alphabet. It can be a hashtag, can be, the at the rate symbol. It can be my password. What just happened? I accidentally hit the, close button. My mistake. So, look, what was I saying? Yes. So, strings are just whatever you write in quotation marks is going to be a string, right? And mostly it's used for alphabets, A, B, C, D, and not just alphabets, like anything, just a piece of text, just a piece of text. I would just write text in here, and these quotation marks can include integers or real numbers or true. They can literally, contain anything. It's just that it has to be a piece of text, something that is readable, something that has meaning. Okay. I can write my password in here. What did you think? I was literally going to, write my password in here? Obviously not. You can just write whatever you go, write dots, you can write special characters, you can write whatever you want, right? Now, before I tell you about these ones, or this two, I would rather talk about character. Character is just a single string, it's just a single string. Like A, that's a character, or two, that's also a character. So when you write a single thing, a single character, single alphabet, a single special character, anything, just a single one, just a single one, you know, inside the quotation marks, instead of being a string, it just becomes a character. This is the data type for it, right? That's one thing. And now Boolean values. Boolean values are just yes or no. You normally write them as true or false, you know, or a one or zero. Let's just not try to make it confusing, true and false. These are the only two values that Boolean values use, right? It's kind of like a switch. When you turn on the fan, it's in the true state. When you turn off the fan, when you flip the switch, it's false, right? You know, so that's a Boolean value. Now, for real numbers, they are literally like integers but decimal numbers. Real numbers just mean decimal numbers. So if I write 20, that would be an integer. If I write 20.0, that would be a real number. 19.268 would be a real number. In the previous question, in the previous lecture that I just recorded, we were doing the topical past papers for floating point representation, right? Real numbers are also called float. If you ever learned Python, they're also called float. But mostly in this chapter, we're going to be referring to them as real numbers, right? In the topical past papers, there was this question, plus 26 point, 668, 26.6875. That's a real number, you know, that here is a real number. So done. That's it. And as for date, obviously it's just the date format. For example, today is, let me write, today is what? It's 11, I think. Yep, 11, 6, 26, right? That would be, the date. So that's it. These are the data types. These are the built-in data types. So let's say you're new to programming, you're new to computer systems, right? You don't have to create your own data types. Like for example, in here, when you began your business, right? The warehouse did not give you the categories on its own, right? You are the one who made the boxes. You are the one who managed everything. You are the one who gave the boxes the name tags, right? Like for example, these are the fragile ones. These are the, harsh ones. They don't break this easily. You're the one who created the categories yourself. The credit goes to you. In computer systems, you don't have to create every single, you know, data types all by yourself. You know, some data types are given to you inside the computer. Why? Because they are the most common ones. Like there are millions of users out there. There are millions of people who use computer systems, right? So for the convenience of this general public, they created these built-in data types. So everyone who tries to use a computer is going to get these data types, ready to use. They don't have to create their own data types, right? These are what we call built-in data types or primitive data types, right? Now the definition for this would be that, they're built into the computer system or the programming language that is somebody is using, you know, built that's two T's, built into the, you know, programming language a programmer is using, right? And honestly, the exact wording for the definitions, right now, I'm not telling you the definitions. I'm not telling you anything to memorize. Once I do tell you stuff to memorize, then you have to. But for now, I'm not telling you the exact definition that that you have to write in the exam. I'm not telling you the exact stuff. I'm just trying to give you an overview, right? I'm just trying to give you, just the general thing, just the concept, right? These are what you call the built-in data types or the primitive data types, right? So if they ask you in the exam, well then, okay, I said I'm not telling you the exact definitions. Well then, what am I doing here? Like, when are you going to learn about the data type? In topical past papers, because the exact wording from the Cambridge marking schemes is just something that, you should memorize. And we're going to learn more about that once we start doing past papers. For now, it's just the concept, right? And yep, you still do know the definition. Built into the built into built into the programming language that the programmer is using, right? Or the PC that they're using. 8 minutes for this. In this lecture, we did what? Built-in data types, right? In the next lecture, we are going to learn about the other type for data types, which is user-defined data types. Okay? So this is what we are going to learn about in the next lecture, inshallah ta'ala. By the way, you know what? The reason I'm trying to keep these short is just so that I can manage them easily. Never mind. But and another thing here is the fact that you're not going to use the built-in data types. I mean, this is something you already know, right? It's just that in AS levels and in O levels, you don't really learn that, these are, sorry, in O levels and in AS levels, you learn these data types as data types. You don't know that there are different types of data types as well, right? Well, and everything that you've learned so far, these common data types are called built-in data types and primitive data types. These are the new things we learned, right? And in the next lecture, we're going to learn about, the user-defined data types. So, these are the data types that come built within the PC, within the programming language, but these are not enough, right? We need more. And in order to have more, we need to create our own data types, right? Those are what we call user defined data types. And that is what we're going to learn in the next lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.